Hey everybody, we'll get started here in just a moment, but if you can hear us and if we're streaming in 1080p, go ahead and leave a thumbs up in the chat and we will get started here in a moment. Thank you all for joining, and hopefully you are all having a wonderful Thursday. All right, we'll get started here in a moment. All right, I think we're ready to get started here. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. Today is May 23rd, 2024. It is about 9:38 p.m. Eastern Time here in New York City. Now, we're reporting live on Park Avenue and East 52nd Street. We're outside my favorite building in all of New York City, and we are overlooking the beautiful 432 Park Avenue, which, by the way, there's a pretty interesting and notable listing that just came up at 432 Park. Let me pull it up here so I can share it with all of you in the chat. My internet would work. Perfect. Cool. So go ahead and look in the chat. You'll see my name highlighted at Walks Wall Street, and I dropped the link to a Real Deal article. Now, a Saudi billionaire slashed the price of his 432 Park Avenue penthouse again, and it is listed on the market at $105 million. So, should be pretty interesting. The broker on the deal is Noble Black, and pretty excited about this one. It's about 8,200 square feet. He listed it in 2021 for $169 million. Slashed the price, it's back on the market for $105 million, and it encompasses the entire 96th floor of the building. It breaks down to about $12,805 a foot. Just pretty unbelievable to even think about something like that. So I'll show you where it is. Let's see if we can zoom in. There it is. That little square all the way at the top with the lights on, that's the apartment. Quite unbelievable. But I'm sure they'll sell it in due time. Noble Black is a fantastic and very, very talented broker. But anyway, guys, jumping right into the financial markets, this is actually a pretty historic day for the financial markets as a whole. I'm not sure if you know, this is pretty breaking news, pretty recent. as of maybe 4 hours ago. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, has now officially approved a spot Ethereum ETF, which is absolutely massive. This is another step to legitimize the space, to provide not only retail investors but institutional investors with comfort and certainty around their decisions in expanding these types of products to their clients and to themselves if you're a retail investor. So breaking news, I believe this was a basket of 5 spot Ethereum ETFs, which essentially means instead of having the derivative, essentially trading derivative contract, these ETFs will be able to buy the physical coin of Ethereum. Now, I'm what you would call probably a Bitcoin maximalist, but I think this kind of changes the game, right? Because at first you had Gary Gensler and the SEC kind of assuming and asserting that Ethereum was unlicensed security and an unregistered security. Now it looks like they've changed their tune and gave the stamp of approval on the Ethereum spot ETF. So this is massive, and I don't think people realize how massive this is. I think the way I envision this is a snowball. Let's say if you're at the very, very top of a hill, you make a snowball and you roll the snowball down the hill. This is like 2 turnovers on the snowball before it turns into a massive, massive, giant avalanche, so to speak. I was kind of reflecting on this with a friend. You know, we thought we were kind of early to the space in late 2016, early 2017 when Bitcoin was like $700. But kind of, you know, putting things into perspective now, I mean, talk about being early. I think this is probably inning number 3 for the entire space. Because once you start to have these products approved by the SEC, that is going to be the staple and the guiding light for the rest of the world. And you're going to start to see more institutions come in here, more family offices, and you're going to see this incorporated into a lot of pension funds and pension plans. That's my take. I think this is going to be massive. We talked about NVIDIA yesterday. Stock ringing the register in a new all-time record highs, crossing $1,000 a share for the first time ever. The market capitalization for the company sits at $2.5 trillion. Now, with that being said, everybody, I'll go ahead, close up the laptop. We'll say hello to everybody in the chat and we will get started. Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Thursday night. Give us a minute and we will get started. Now, we are going to spend some time talking about the crypto space. I know many of you don't like it. It's very kind of polarizing subject. I get a lot of emails, but I think it's important. Esmeralda, Austin City Limits, Spencer, D, Joe Driver, Richard Vogel is here. New England Crypto, I'm sure you're excited about the news this evening. John says, let's go Ethereum. Good to see you, John. Connie A. Trust you're well, Connie. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful night. Alan is here. Victor C. Unij 23. We're standing outside the Seagram building, which is 375 Park Avenue. Just an amazing, amazing building, architectural marvel in the city, and it's my personal favorite office tower. Dario, what's going on? Western Mass Dave is back in action yet again. Always a pleasure and an honor to have Dave here. Sharon, welcome, welcome. And Emma G. Now, finally, it's beautiful weather in New York City, and it also is Fleet Week, and it's going to be Memorial Day weekend. So, first and foremost, thank you to all of our servicemen and women. We appreciate you very much. Let me see if I can turn off my Wi-Fi. All right, that should do it. All right, so we'll jump right into the news. So breaking news right at the market close. Gary Gensler and the Securities and Exchange Commission officially approves a basket of spot Ethereum ETFs. Now, this comes after we had the breaking news a few months ago now about the SEC approving a spot Bitcoin ETF. So we'll briefly talk about what the difference is. Okay, there's always been Bitcoin ETFs, but they've really been a derivative. So instead of owning the physical coins of Bitcoin, they've essentially been speculating on the future price of Bitcoin through futures or futures contracts or derivatives, right? So it's a huge difference. It's a very important difference. And this, in my view, is going to further legitimize the space, whether you like it or not. Okay, you could be totally anti-cryptocurrency, anti-Bitcoin, that's fine. But when you have a massive ruling like this, right, the main regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, that is in charge of keeping free and fair markets and keeping consumers safe and protected, when you have those rulings approving these products, that's a huge step. Because a lot of institutions, as we're standing right outside of Blackstone, a lot of these institutions have been very hesitant to dip their toe in the water in gaining exposure for their clients to these types of assets, like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Mainly because there wasn't a whole lot of regulatory clarity. And we talked about this in great detail. As you know, I'm probably what you would call, well, what you would have called a Bitcoin maximalist, which is a person who only has exposure to Bitcoin and nothing else because of the uncertainty around the altcoins. Now, Gary Gensler has come out and said before that he thinks that Ethereum is a security. Obviously, he made the ruling that Bitcoin is property. But now it looks like he's changing his tune on it. So if, assuming, right, if you approve a spot Ethereum ETF, and that's going to start trading on all the exchanges, I think BlackRock just dropped their ticker. But again, I really didn't have time to look into this. I literally just started the stream when this news came out. That's huge for legitimizing it. Every financial advisor, I think, every broker dealer is going to start to offer this stuff to their clients, and this could be pretty massive here. Now, as traders and investors, it's important to trend follow and identify these trends. And if we've gotten here with pretty much no regulatory clarity and pretty much nobody knowing what any of this stuff is, imagine where this space is going to be now that we're just starting to get some sort of regulatory oversight. A lot of the big family offices, pension funds, hedge funds, institutions are just now starting to understand this. I think this could be pretty big. What do you guys think? Hey, Mary B is here. What's up? Rick C and PA, welcome. Bree Grams, thanks for joining. New England Crypto says Tom is going to buy into the ETH ETF. So I'll never, ever, ever own an ETF product for crypto. And I have reasoning behind this, and we briefly talked about that reasoning, particularly Bitcoin. Because the main value proposition that I see with Bitcoin is that it's an unconfiscatable asset, the only one in the world. And the value is if you have your private keys, that's what makes it unconfiscatable. But if you buy a BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, well, you're giving Larry Fink your private keys. So what's the value in that, right? Nothing against Larry Fink, but Tatted T, what's going on? Welcome, welcome. So let's put things into perspective here just a little bit, shall we? And by the way, I did just send out our free investing newsletter called Behind the Street. We had a more focus on how to identify what I like to call TMLs, or true market leaders. What are the different characteristics of identifying these companies, right? If you think about the NVIDIAs and the stocks that have gone up 500% over the last 24 months, what are the characteristics? How do we identify them? right? If you want to know, check out the newsletter, just check your email. But I want to take a step back as we're outside the New York Palace here, which is a gorgeous hotel. I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but we did many walking tours inside this hotel during the holidays. I'd say the New York Palace, maybe St. Regis, and the Peninsula Hotel. Those three probably have the best displays for the holidays. Would you agree with that? Maybe the Plaza is up there too, but the New York Palace is beautiful. New England Crypto says I won't buy the ETFs either, but I do own ETH in my own wallet. Rick C in PA says I tried to understand the crypto space and I don't get it. No Mikey says in the last 2 quarters Bitcoin is up by 80%. Indeed it is. Peter says Ethereum have a finite number of supply. No, it does not. We can get into the whole debate about Bitcoin versus Ethereum and the like. Esteban says, Tom, what about the retail price war between Walmart and Target? Well, it's interesting because we talked about that a little bit in the newsletter. So if you compare the two companies, right, you'll see a very stark contrast between the share price in each. If you look at Walmart, ticker symbol WMT, new all-time record highs, ringing the register after a great earnings report. But then if you look at Target, I think Target's trading below its 200-day moving average. And we briefly talked about maybe why this is, but I'd say the biggest thing that's outstanding to me is that Walmart slowly but surely is able to, I should say, attract more affluent consumers. There was an interesting statistic that came out that said of people making, I don't know what I included it in the newsletter, but it said 54% of people making over $100,000 a year household income, that's considered an affluent consumer, of the total share of shoppers at Walmart, that percentage of affluent consumers has grown from 50% to 54%. You're starting to see affluent consumers shy away from Trader Joe's and even kind of reduce a little bit at Whole Foods. Now, there's a few reasons for this. Walmart has actually invested a lot of money in healthier options, I should say. I'm not going to say healthy options. I'll use the term healthier options. And number two, they've invested a lot of money in convenience, aka e-commerce, right? So if you think about the experiences that you get when you go into a Walmart versus when now you go into a Target where everything is locked up behind plexiglass, which we talked about, stark contrast in experience. And not for nothing, there is a Walmart Supercenter in North Miami Beach that I go to all the time. It's not bad in terms of like buying steaks and things like that. It's actually quite good. Now, it's not better than Whole Foods, obviously, but for a Walmart, the quality has significantly improved. I'd say the produce has improved significantly. The bakery section has improved significantly at Walmart. And you can actually get some pretty good steaks there. I mean, what do you guys think? Would you agree with that statement or disagree? Because I remember when I was a kid, like a little kid, I would go grocery shopping with my mother. And that was when the Walmart Supercenters were kind of first rolling out. Do you guys remember this? This was probably like maybe 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Or maybe like 10, 11-ish years ago. And the produce was horrible there. Really, really bad. But now, it's actually quite good. Not gonna lie. Look at this beautiful St. Patrick's Cathedral here. New England Crypto says I would never ever buy a steak at Walmart. Not even here in New England. Wow, interesting. They're pretty good in Miami. Hey, Elliott Wave Review. Good to see you. Western Mass Dave's, as I haven't been to a Target in a long time. Yeah, we'll see. It's quite interesting. Al Baker, what's up? Oh, cool. Kevin D, welcome to New York City. Very nice. So I wanted just to quickly put something in perspective before I forget. If you look at the entire market capitalization of all of the entire ecosystem of cryptocurrency, it's about $2.5 trillion. That's nothing. Okay, if you're talking about the global financial system or the global financial markets, $2.5 trillion might as well be a rounding error. It's nothing. That's one NVIDIA. Okay, think about that. NVIDIA, after their earnings report, up about 6% in after-hours trading yesterday. And I think today it closed over $1,000 a share. They announced the stock split, but over $1,000 a share, bringing the market capitalization to about $2.5 trillion. The entire ecosystem of cryptocurrencies is about 2.5 trillion. So let me get away from these people. Hold on one second. And it's 2.5 trillion with, generally speaking, no institutional involvement, right? Yeah, there's institutions in it, there's hedge funds that own it, but I'm talking about like the sovereign wealth funds, major family offices, and pension funds. Like that type of institutional exposure is kind of what I'm talking about. So, you know, and I was talking with a friend about this, because I remember in my college years, you know, we would, you know, go online and build little gambling websites and build things in Pygame, and, you know, we were very involved in that, the Bitcoin ecosystem. And this is when Bitcoin was like $750, $800. Now it's handling just under 70,000, which is wild. So I think this is probably inning 2, maybe the top of the second inning out of the whole baseball game. And you'll probably see over time the whole market cap of Bitcoin probably grow to about $10 trillion dollars. So I think we're still really early. I think it's going to be quite the wild ride. So interesting perspective, because it's a very polarizing topic, right? You know, if you talk to anybody, generally speaking, on one side of the conversation about Bitcoin, and let's say they like it, they're obsessed with it, they try to get other people to buy it, they're almost crazed. It's like a cult almost. But then if you talk to the other side of the opposition, who's bearish or negative on it, it's almost like the polar opposite. They think it's a scam, they think it's a fraud, they think it's going to zero. I think a perfect example would be like a Peter Schiff in Nature. And Peter Schiff's a really good guy. I've met him a few times, really good guy. And again, going back to kind of what my really good friend used to say, he's like, the best trades that he's made in his life were in things that were super turbocharged and polarizing. Right, just think about like a Tesla. All of these short sellers hit piece after hit piece after hit piece saying Elon Musk is a fraud, the company is going to zero, it's going to go bankrupt. That's on one side. But on the other side, you have other people like Ron Barron that are like almost cult-like bullish on the company. So I kind of pull some similarities there. And those type of asset classes tend to have the largest price movements. Oh, Wise House is the US dollar is going to zero. I don't know about that. Prince says, I would never invest in something just because it is going up. There is no reason it should go up except for the next fool argument. Yeah, then don't buy it. Joe Driver says, I was loaded. Oh, I was a loaded cattle hauler on 95. I don't know what you're trying to say. Hey, Ed Dunkel, good to see you. Welcome. Chef Jansen says, I call corporate America food cancer food or food poison products. Jack CW says, did you see Abercrombie stock is up 400% in the year? I did not see that. All right, let's start to head down. Jack CW says, thoughts on the second case of bird flu in humans? I don't pay attention to any of that. I think it's all bullshit. And that's a very, hot take, polarizing topic. And maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I'm stupid. And I probably am. But I could not give a shit about any of that bullshit. COVID, nothing. Don't give a shit. Sorry. Not to be kind of nasty or curt about it, it's all nonsense to me. If they lock down the country again, whatever. I'll just take a few years off in Miami and just stay at my house. All right, let's go ahead and navigate all the way to the east side, or excuse me, the west side of Manhattan, east side. We're gonna go to the west side of Manhattan and we're gonna see the Intrepid because it is Fleet Week. So I think it'll be interesting and it will be quite fun to see all the Navy ships that are docked in the harbor, and we're probably going to see a lot of servicemen and women too. All right, let's make this left. Now, I quickly just want to give just a brief update and maybe a quick preface to the newsletter that I just sent out. I wanted to keep it more of an educational piece to kind of focus on a lot of the things we've been talking about. Specifically, how to identify and what are the different characteristics of these true market leaders, right? There we have some US Marines. So it's nice that we, cover, this stock's been up, 400% in the year, over 18 to 24 months, it's been up 1,000%. But how do we identify them? And how can we keep ourselves in these names specifically? And in addition to that, what are the specific characteristics that make these stocks go up so much, or outperform the market, I should say, if you're trying to generate alpha? So the term in the industry, on the street, if you're actively managing a portfolio, your goal is to generate what's called alpha over the benchmark index, which would be the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, or the Dow. So for example, if the S&P 500 is up 10% in a year and your firm returns 12%, well, you've generated 2% in alpha. You did a really good job. So I think it's important for everyone that's a market participant, and pretty much everybody is, right? If you have a 401k, if you have a retirement account, chances are if you have a job, you probably have money in some sort of retirement account, right? 401k or the like. IRA, something like that. It's important, and I would, if you could do this over the summer, if you have some time, just do a case study, right? You could even use ChatGPT to help you out with this. And I would put it in an Excel model and go back and study the top performing stocks of all time. You can just Google it. What are the top performing stocks that had the greatest price appreciation of all time? And when you do this, you could identify and kind of work backwards what the company was doing in terms of sales, in terms of revenue, in terms of its pre-tax and after-tax margins, its return on equity, what was its total addressable market during the time of its price appreciation, and was it in an expanding TAM, right? Because oftentimes, a company could think it addresses a total addressable market of, let's say, $3 billion. But some different new product or some new innovation comes out that'll expand their TAM by, let's say, 25%. And the market will assign a higher multiple to that stock just because it's addressing a larger TAM now. So in the newsletter, to kind of go back to the point I was making, we took some very basic examples of companies that have been performing really, really well now. Like an NVIDIA would be a really good one. I tried to pick companies from different sectors, or I should say from very, very different sectors. Like NVIDIA would be semiconductors, and then I picked a cosmetics brand that we talk about sometimes, which is e.l.f. Beauty. And it's interesting to kind of do a deep dive in those companies and work backwards and see, okay, what percentage of sales growth does the company have? What percentage of earnings growth does the company have? What are its margins? How many basis points per quarter or per annum is margin expanding? And when you make these model books, and you can do this in Microsoft Excel, try to pick a company from each specific sector in the market. So semiconductors would be a good one. Enterprise software would be another really good one. Consumer staples, right? Auto OEMs, well, like a Tesla. So when other companies start to go public, right, if you're looking at new IPOs, new initial public offerings, one of the things that you can do is go back to your models and say, okay, Chipotle was a massive winner. The stock went up, whatever, I'm just making an example, 1,000% over 7 years. This company that went public is very similar. It has a similar business model, not exactly similar. Maybe it has a smaller TAM, maybe there's not as many locations, and you can go back through those earnings reports when Chipotle was in a similar stage of growth and look at the forward-looking statements from those earnings reports. How many stores were they expecting to grow a year? You could do the same thing with any different sector, and then you could try to, put a premium on the stock that you're looking at. You could try to, assign it a multiple to a similar, valuation or similar multiple that model company was trading at the time. And that's going to help you a lot. That helped me a lot. That's kind of how I was taught, from someone who runs a very, very successful fund on the street. Now, it's very time consuming, right? And it can be a little bit tedious. But if you're interested in business, you're going to learn a lot about these companies. You're going to learn a lot about the management, and you're going to try to identify trends. You'll notice at specific times when the stock price declined, all but quite significantly, you can kind of go back and do a post-analysis and say, okay, well, why did it decline? Did management make a big mistake? Did they have a food safety issue? Did their product launch fall on its face? You can go on forever. And this will kind of help you not be predictive in the market, but kind of help you understand what you should be able to expect going forward, hopefully. Hey, Carol S. What's up? Good to see you, and welcome to New York City during Fleet Week. We have a bunch of U.S. Marines here. Thank you for your service. Appreciate all the U.S. Marines. Mary, this is Tom. Where do you get that detailed information on the company one is researching? That's a really good question, and the good news is, since we live in America, and I believe that we have the freest and fairest markets ever, the SEC requires that these companies put their full disclosures, or their 10Ks, their 10Qs, make them available for free online at sec.gov. So any company that's publicly traded, anyone that you can imagine, if you just go to sec.gov, you type in its ticker symbol, let's say Apple, for example, you could type in ticker symbol AAPL. All of the 10Ks, all of the 10Qs are archived on sec.gov, all public available information. You don't have to pay for anything. Now, it is a little bit tedious sifting through all those reports. There are some softwares that can kind of help you out with that, but you don't really need any of that stuff, right? I really strongly believe you don't need a Bloomberg terminal. You don't need market surge. I do pay for that though, but you really don't. You really, really don't. But yeah, all the and let's say, for example, let's say if you don't even want to go to sec.gov, you could just go to the investor relations website of any company that's publicly traded. So for example, Salesforce, ironically enough, we are right next to Salesforce Tower, ticker symbol CRM. If you just go to salesforce.com /investor relations, you can look at all of the earnings presentations. Prince, his hindsight is 2020. Index funds are the way to go for folks. For most folks, since picking stocks is tougher than meets the eye. Yeah, I definitely agree. Billy says, Tom, do you ever catch yourself spelling Apple with 2 A's in real life? I used to always mix up the Apple ticker symbol. I would punch it in as APPL for whatever reason, instead of AAPL. But I always mix things up in general because I'm dyslexic. Now the thing about dyslexia though, it's not traditionally what you think about as you jumble up words and stuff. It's more of a comprehension thing. It's like very difficult. You have to reread things like 30 times to really ingrain it into your mind. Or you'll read something as a completely different word. It's not necessarily you read it backwards. It's just you can skim it over and read it as a different word. Hey, what's up, MD? Melissa 2087 says, are you doing anything special this weekend? I have to go to a wedding tomorrow. So unfortunately, there's going to be no live broadcast tomorrow or the next day. So tomorrow night, I have the welcome party for the wedding, and then on the 25th, I actually have to go to the wedding. So yeah, I mean, it should be a pretty fun weekend. I mean, the city is rocking. It's Fleet Week, it's Memorial Day weekend. The weather is beautiful. New York City looks great. What about you? Any interesting and fun plans this weekend? Teresa Diaz says, is it better to invest in individual stocks or index funds? I would say, I mean, I can't advise on anything, but generally speaking, for most people, if you just buy America, which would be just buying the S&P 500, I think you'll do fine over time. Generally speaking, corporate profits in America tend to increase 8% a year, which means the market ought to double every 12. And there's a really good book, really good book by Peter Lynch. It's called One Up on Wall Street. Really good book. I would definitely read that. But you know, a lot of people are in the business of running money. So if that's what you want to do, like as a career, if you're trying to generate alpha for your investors, which would be anything over the benchmark, you're not going to beat the benchmark by buying the benchmark, right? So people take risk in the market. Now, I also believe, and it's my opinion, it doesn't mean I'm right. Okay, so what I'm about to say doesn't mean I'm right, but I do believe, I really do believe what I mean. The market needs some sort of active investment. Because at the end of the day, what I think sometimes people can forget to understand is behind a stock is a company, okay? And it's not good just to aimlessly give companies money. right? They need to be good stewards of the money. They need to be good stewards of their investment. And that's really why activist investing, oh, look at this ping pong. And that's really why activist investing is really important, because if you have management that is just gassing their corporate compensation, right, lining their own pockets while running the company into the ground, and if the board of directors isn't, well, let's just say this, if the board of directors is being derelict in their duties to rectify that situation, if they're being derelict in their duties to rectify that situation, well, you're going to have a lot of bad corporate governance, I should say. And that is very, very dangerous. So by having activism and by having active investors, it kind of does exactly what capitalism is meant to do, put checks and balances into the system, right? And then there's even more money to be made in that, right? Activist investing, leverage buyouts, LBOs, all that. There's been a few really, really notable ones that have been in the news. If you heard of, Pershing Square, Bill Ackman's company in general, he's had many successful activist investments. I'd say one of the biggest ones would be Chipotle. Chipotle wasn't always a true market leader. Chipotle was on the brink of totally destroying its reputation, totally destroying its brand. They were having food safety issues. I'm not sure if anyone remembers that, but things were pretty bad, and the stock was down like 70%. And Ackman came in there, bought a sizable chunk of the company, pretty much replaced the entire C-suite, and turned the company around. So I agree with passive investing. Pretty much almost 100% of my retirement account is just indexed to the S&P 500. But in my actively managed accounts, I try to pick winning stocks and hopefully beat the index. But on a larger scale, I do think it's important that you have active management to kind of keep corporate governance in check. Because if you don't, you'll just have a bunch of ex-McKinsey executives being put in place as CEOs of companies and gassing their corporate compensation, running the company into the ground, and move on to the next one. And that happens more often than you think. Oh, thank you so much, Patrice 2020. Appreciate the birthday wishes. Thank you so much. Optimus 17, I appreciate you. Billy says Luckin Coffee. Well, what's funny about Luckin Coffee, it used to trade under the ticker symbol LK. It was delisted for fraud, I believe. They were cooking their books. But that's actually a pretty good company. There's a gentleman, I forget his name. He used to be a big partner, I believe it's Ziff Brothers Investments, which is a big family office that runs the Ziff family's fortune. He recently left, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, broke off to do his own thing, and he runs, I believe, a long-only Chinese equity fund that invests into high-growth Chinese companies. And I think he has a sizable position in Luckin Coffee, because it is a good company. I mean, it makes money. The growth is real there, but they were just lying about how fast the company was growing. So I believe it was delisted. Hey, Aldo says, happy birthday, Tom. Many happy returns. I hit 40 this August. Hey, well, God bless. Happy birthday to you. That's awesome. I hear in the 40s are the best years of your life. So, congrats on that. God bless. Look at how pristine the lawn at Bryant Park looks, everybody. Oh, Maddie, this was your birthday today or yesterday? It's on the 25th, but happy birthday to you. Oh, you have a lot of Mays. You have a lot of May birthdays. It's pretty cool. Zozo Bob, what's up? Yeah, TK Porsche's McKinsey gets no love these days. McKinsey's catching unnecessary strays on the live stream tonight, which I apologize. I was just making an example for sure. I have a lot of good friends who work at McKinsey. Just a little bit of a troll. But if you guys are enjoying the stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these streams almost every day starting at 8:30. This is the Bryant Park Grill. Looks pretty beautiful tonight with everybody dining outside. Cape Cod Sarah, appreciate it. All right, so here's what we will do. We're gonna make a right outside of Bryant Park, and we're gonna go to the Hudson River. So we're gonna go all the way, pretty much until you can't go anymore, and we'll check out the Intrepid for Fleet Week, which should be nice. Nick says, when I turned 40, the aches and pains started. I did get rid of a bit of pain too, my ex-husband. Oh, jeez. Well, no comment from me on that, but glad some of the pain has gone away. All right, could we change things up a bit? I got an interesting topic, and I want your take on this. Is it all right if we do that? I want everybody's take on this. So, if you're not familiar with what happened, there was a little bit of
maybe not as much as
drama going on the X platform the other night. So, billionaire investor Bill Ackman gets in a taxi cab. So I guess apparently if you call an Uber, right, if you use the Uber application and you call an Uber, there's some sort of partnership with the company Curb and the yellow cabs where you could potentially get picked up in a yellow cab when you use an Uber. So Bill Ackman's asking the taxi driver, how do you like Uber, this and that, yada yada. And the cab driver turns to Bill Ackman and he says, I don't like the Uber platform at all, because even if somebody gives us a tip, Uber takes 100% of the tip and we get nothing. Which prompted Bill Ackman to freaking go on a Twitter diatribe like he usually does. And I like Bill Ackman, I'm not picking on him. And he starts freaking out. He texts, I think the CTO of the company, saying, hey, this is unacceptable. You're defrauding these Uber drivers out of their tips. How is it possible that they're getting none of the tip and you're keeping all of it? I demand immediately that you give all of the tips to the Uber drivers plus interest. The tweet gets over 4 million views. Now it turns out that was all BS. Like, it was totally not true at all. Uber.
Thank you for your live stream.
Oh, hey, good to see you, man.
Pleasure to see you.
Oh,
from
thanks.
Germany.
Oh, wow,
You're a
awesome,
loyal
dude.
Subscriber.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying the
Amazing.
city, dude. How long are you here?
1 week. Tomorrow is the last day.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Well, did you enjoy the city? It was.
We love the city. It's our
Yeah, it's awesome.
5th time.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
cool.
And we always come back.
Nice. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
man.
Thank
It's
you,
awesome
man.
meeting you. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And safe.
All you do, all the work you do.
Thank you. I
Things that
appreciate
aren't
it.
all like this.
Thank you so much. Well, have a safe trip back.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Thank
I'll
you.
visit Germany. I'll hit you up.
Because of Memorial Day. Ooh, we'll see.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Are you flying out of JFK or LaGuardia?
Yeah, JFK.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they have construction. We will see if it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just take. Are you gonna take an Uber there? Or are you gonna do
No, we want to take the air train.
Yeah. So Long Island Railroad, Jamaica. Yeah, that's what I do
think
too.
It's the best way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cheapest way too, man.
Yeah.
Hey, but again, nice meeting you.
Amazing to see you, man.
Hey, good meeting you too.
In 2
yeah.
days, I watch you from home in Germany.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for watching. It means a lot.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Really.
All right,
Thank
man.
you. Have
Well,
a good night, man.
God bless. Take care. That's a nice guy from Germany. Now, it's interesting because does anybody remember I said that this summer will probably be the biggest summer ever for tourism in New York City? I think I'm going to stick with that bet. I think things are going to going to pick up even more here, which is great. But really cool. Nice meeting all the viewers. Very nice people from around the world. It's kind of incredible how wide the reach is, right? All the way from Germany. Well, it's back to the Bill Ackman thing. Turns out that none of it was true. What happens is, at the end of the day, Curbed does 100% pass through to the Uber drivers, and they do get 100% of the tip. Now, the reason why I bring this up, and this is kind of why I wanted to get your opinion on this, because we've had recent events in the news with the GameStop meme stocks again coming out. There was a tweet that was sent from a account that was owned or still owned, nobody knows, by the name of Roaring Kitty, just posted a meme. And that essentially made the stock price go up an insane amount. So the question is, in the age of social media, do you think there's going to be new rules, laws, and regulations about what you can and can't say, depending on the size of your audience, about specific stocks or companies? Because with the Ackman thing, that was a big accusation, a huge accusation on a multi-billion-dollar company, and that tweet got over 5 million views in less than 12 hours. Now the correction, now here's the problem. The correction or the debunk to the misleading tweet only got like 750,000 or maybe 1 million. So there's still people out there right now that thinks that Uber is purposely defrauding New York City taxi drivers. So number one, do we think there's going to be new rules and regulations about what you can and can't say about publicly traded companies, specifically if you are a multi-billionaire hedge fund manager? Do you think there's going to be censorship on what used to be free speech? Any thoughts on that? Mark Francis says, I'm not sure you could enforce those rules. Optimus 17 says, Bill jumped to a conclusion hearing one story from one driver. No Mikey says, yep, if a stock can be influenced that easily, we definitely have a problem. I think I agree. Stylish Bunny says you should have checked before he posted it. I definitely agree. MD says, how could that guy be so uninformed about his tips? Yeah, and that's another point. Somebody said that Bill Ackman tagged the mayor in New York City. He did. So he even brought in politicians about it too. Tony says, maybe in the future, tweets/social media posts will be screened by artificial intelligence. If AI doesn't like it, AI won't post it. T-Cal says, how is he supposed to know? Peter says, if it's not free speech, it's not free speech if it's slander. Intent is a major consideration. MD says, exactly, Ackman was probably shorting the stock. Now, I don't know about that. That's a big claim. I will say this. Well, let me first say this. I don't know if Ackman was shorting the stock. I doubt it, because I think they're a long-only fund. Pershing Square, I think, is long-only. They're not even allowed to short stocks. And I don't think Bill Ackman would do that. I think he's of above moral character, above board. Has a good reputation. And on Wall Street, reputation is everything. So I don't think he would do that. But, I mean, to have that... And look, I'm a free speech absolutist. That's what I would consider myself as. But we would be wrong in thinking that you can just aimlessly tweet or post anything you want if you have a large audience, and it won't have any ramifications on a company, right? Especially like somebody like Bill Ackman. I mean, he's on CNBC all the time. I mean, even people that are not in finance know the guy's name. So to make a diatribe like that on a company that's publicly traded and in 12 hours gets 3 million views, turns out to be totally fake, whew, I don't know. That's, it's a tough one. I don't know. I will say this, I do not believe that the current regulatory oversight that we have in America is akin to support the new society that we have with social media. That I will say. Phillips's Ackman needs to get with Palantir. Prince is not true, Pershing shorted Herbalife 10 years ago. Yeah, that was 10 years ago when they were a predominantly activist fund, when they did short stocks. They don't short stocks anymore after that. But you are correct, that was one of the most, I would say, widely watched activist battles of all time. And in college I read and studied that short thesis. I read the entire short thesis of Herbalife. Essentially, Carl Icahn had a massive long position in the company. Bill Ackman alleged that Herbalife was a pyramid-style scam, which is essentially everybody at the top makes all the money, and the company specifically, and again, not in my words, this is according to Pershing Square's short thesis, the company predominantly operated in low-income neighborhoods and went after and marketed towards predominantly minorities. So there was really two things at play. The company predominantly operated in low-income neighborhoods to sell, allegedly, again, I don't want to get sued, allegedly, sell people a false dream that if they were to buy and sell these products, they would reach financial freedom, right? Turns out, again, according to that report, that it was a predatory pyramid-style scam. And there's tons of pyramid scams. I mean, I'm sure everybody's familiar. But anyway, I think it's an interesting conversation to have. Because with social media now, you have such reach, especially these people like Elon Musk, these notable fund managers. With one click of a button, you could reach 3 million people. And it's always the fake news that gets the most reach because it's the most sensationalized. And the debunk of the fake news maybe will reach about 25% of the people. So it's a big problem. Madison 32 says, sorry, Tom, I do not trust Bill Ackman. I mean, don't say sorry to me. I mean, I don't care. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is some nefarious activity. I don't think so, but I mean, hey, I never thought about that. We'll see. Carl Roth says, Tom, your business and all that you do to promote and tell us about it, all the buildings and their beauty, say so many good things. We value you. I appreciate that, Carl. Thank you so much for your kind words. Stacks says, billionaires have no clue what the average worker is struggling with. So potentially you're saying a little bit out of touch. I could totally agree with that, because their quality of life is so much different than everybody else's. Hey, Brian says, howdy folks. Brian, I'm just trying to get to as many comments. Alan says, if it makes you mad, it spreads fast. Or so it seems. People love to be reactionary. Totally. Yeah, it's sensationalism. Peter says, I would say, it's libel or slander laws will apply to any remark of a company about a person. Okay, so Peter, with that being said, right, do you think that Uber has grounds to seek legal action against Ackman for that tweet? Because technically he did allege something, right? He said he demands, and maybe the tweet's not up anymore, I don't know, so I'm just paraphrasing the tweet. But I know for sure it said, Ackman said he demands that Uber give all of the tips back with interest, and said it was theft. But I also believe at the end of the tweet he may have said, I hope this is not true, something to that effect. But if you're making demands, I don't know. The point and again, I'll cut right to the chase. The point I'm bringing up this conversation is because it's almost kind of shifted my ideology a little bit. Because the reach of these platforms is bigger than anybody has ever thought possible ever. You know, you could reach millions and millions and millions of people with the click of a finger. And I think you need to, if you're that prominent person like Bill Ackman or Elon Musk, I think you do have an obligation to kind of understand the power you have and not get people jacked up and riled up. And you probably have an added responsibility to kind of watch what you say. At least make sure you totally vet what you're going to say before you blast it out to over 3 million people in 12 hours. I don't know. Again, free speech is a fundamental right, and I'm a big free speech absolutist, but I also can see the other side of the argument. Because let's say if, you know, on a much smaller scale, right, so we can do a little bit of compare and contrast. Let's say, you know, a big celebrity walks into a pizza shop and they're hammered drunk and they make a funny tweet saying, this was the worst pizza I've ever had, nobody go to it, yada, yada, yada. And it turns out they never even ordered anything from the pizza spot. They'll probably put the place out of business. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. MDs is Tom. I checked Uber. Did their stock take a hit? I don't think their stock took a hit. I don't know if 3 million views is enough to have their stock, you know, plunge. Ken Brockton says free speech. Oops. Every time I go to read a comment, the chat jumps. Every time it does that. I'm not going to move until I find Ken Brockton's post. Ah, here it is. Ken Brockton says free speech has limitations related to potential consequences of others. All right, let's head to the Intrepid. Yeah, anyway, not to kind of hammer on the subject, I thought it was just interesting because we've now had 2 instances of major influence. One, just a simple tweet, like a meme, influenced the price of a publicly traded company, GameStop. And now 2, again, I don't know, I didn't look at the share price or the stock price of Uber, but that's a pretty, from a prominent business figure to allege essentially theft, right? If you're not giving your employees tips, if you're taking them, technically that's stealing them. I think that's a pretty big claim to blast out there. That's all I'm saying. Elliot Reviews says, Tom, could Uber sue Bill Ackman for the tweets? I have no idea. I honestly don't know. I don't think they would. I think Ackman has a pretty good relationship with the founders and the CTO. But I'm not a lawyer. Legally, you could probably sue anybody for anything. You could say, hey, this person gave me emotional damage. And you can sue anybody for anything. I don't know if you'll win the case, but... All right, everybody, we are going to start to make our final descent to the Intrepid. We're now on the corner of 8th Avenue and 42nd Street, right outside the Port Authority bus terminal in New York City. Harry says, so it's probably slander. Yeah, maybe. All right, Port Authority Bus Terminal. We are now going to head west and go all the way to the Hudson River. Brad's brain says disagree, Tom. It's up to the reader to interpret. We have to stop removing the individual / consumers. Consumers' personal responsibility from the equation. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, maybe at the end of the day, it's like, look, people say things, people make mistakes. If there wasn't malicious intent, that's the big thing, and I think Peter brought that up. If there's no malicious intent, then it's fine. People make mistakes, you put the community notes, it's fine. But it's unfortunate, but I guess that's just life, right? I mean, community notes, which is the new fact checker on X, they weren't right on it. It took, I think, about a half a day for that to go up. But anyway, I guess not a huge deal, but it's interesting because that could really happen with anything. You know, name the thing, it could happen. The third thing that it's happening with, not to tire you all of this conversation, but this is happening to a private company. Now, I'm sure everybody's familiar, especially if you have little kids. Everybody familiar with that gentleman Logan Paul and KSI? Everybody? Well, if you're not, they're these two, internet boxers, right? Huge influence over really, really young kids, young adults. I think one of them starred in a major Disney Channel series, and now they have what's probably quite literally going to be a multi-billion-dollar sports drink brand. It's not a multi-billion-dollar sports drink brand yet, but I think it will be. I actually really do think it will be. It's called Prime Hydration, and they also have an energy drink division as well that competes with the likes of Celsius and Red Bull. It's called Prime Energy. Well, anyway, to cut right to the chase, there has been these videos circulating on the internet alleging that there's a very high level of microplastics in the drinks, as well as harsh chemicals or dyes and things like that. And apparently the company Prime Hydration is actively going after and pursuing litigation on these people that are making these videos. A lot of these, how would you call them, like health food influencers or something? And if that turns out to be not true, think about how many Facebook, community group chats that parents are in that see one of these videos and say, hey, I'm not going to let my kid drink this sports drink because it has microplastics and toxins. And I don't know if it does or not, okay? I don't know if it does or not. I'm just making the point that we've almost reached an age in the internet where access to information spreads like wildfire. And the misinformation spreads like wildfire. So, I don't know. Again, if it turns out not to be true, if it's safe, if it doesn't have the microplastics, if it doesn't have, the harsh chemicals that they're alleging, well, that's a really big problem, and I think that's probably grounds for litigation for sure. Esteban says lawyers will be the only winners. Not if we have a ChatGPT law office. I guess in conclusion, the appropriate thing is just try to double and triple check and kind of take a breath before you post, I guess. And sometimes I have to take my own advice, right? Sometimes I'll see a crazy, ridiculous article on the internet, which I try to block out, but sometimes people send me things. And then I get that first feeling of enragement. Like, what? How can this be happening? It's crazy. And I feel myself getting enraged. And I'm like, wait, this is what the media wants me to feel like. let me just kind of simmer down and disengage from it. And then 9 times out of 10, in a week, another article comes out with the debunk. So everybody was outraged over nothing. So I'm sure everybody is, I mean, we all have. I mean, if you're a participant of the internet's a crazy place. You've probably read something or read a tweet or read an article from the New York Post, CNN, Fox News, where it makes you enraged. And then when you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, you know what? This was a little bit overstated. Oh, cool. Joy says, I'm an attorney in Thailand. Very cool. Well, thank you for watching. That's awesome. All right, coming up on 10th Avenue here. Lots of traffic. Everybody headed to the West Side Highway. We're 2 blocks away from seeing the Intrepid John says, hey Tom, that garage you just passed has a nice setup for EV charging. You know, John, I'm working a pretty interesting deal. I guess I'll tell you guys a little bit about it. We've been contacting a lot of parking operators in the city, like a lot of big parking operators. And as I've been digging into this, you'd be surprised. There's actually a lot of major private equity firms that have been getting involved in buying out old parking operators and, you know, running these valet style businesses. Because a lot of the older parking garages in Manhattan have been in, you know, people's families, sometimes for generations. And the operators are older, sometimes they don't want to operate them anymore. So private equity has actually been buying these garages out. So our pitch is, one of the things that you could do is condominiumize each individual space. So instead of having to, you know, lease out the whole garage to a valet company and run a valet business, right, where you charge people by the month, if you just want a payday and you just want to cash out, well, you can condominiumize the entire garage. So just like you would buy a condo in New York City and live in it, you can pretty much make a parking space a condo where you have individual deeds to each space. So let's say, for example, a parking garage has 100 spaces. You'll send the floor plans in for approval from the city. They approve the creation of a sponsor condo board, which would essentially just be the owner of the garage. And once you reach a certain amount sold of those individual spaces, it then kicks the sponsor out. It creates its own condo board, and everybody who owns a space in the garage, you know, their common charges, their HOA will go to run the operations of the garage. And these spaces in Manhattan could sell anywhere between, you know, $155,000 a space all the way to $350,000 a space, depending on the garage, right? If it's an older garage, depending on the location, it'll probably be $150. If it's a very nice garage, which they call mechanical garages in Soho, Tribeca, you could probably get $350 for it. So we've been signing a lot of contracts to lead sales on individual deeded condo spaces, and we've accumulated quite a bit. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll sign a contract to lead sales on 70 spaces in a building called the Visionaire. So if you want to check it out, and you could kind of see, hopefully I don't jinx my own deal, but I think it's interesting to kind of see different business structures in the city. But it's right on West Street, and it's 2 blocks away from Goldman Sachs, which is at 200 West Street. It's in the basement of that really nice condo building, the Visionaire. So my thought process is, if people own those condos, they'd probably be very receptive and open to buying their own parking space, and they probably have the money to do it. They'll probably be very, very easy and quick cash closes, you sell all 70 out at $150,000 or $175,000 a pop. That's a win for everybody, because now you own your space. You don't have to deal with the valet. You can park it yourself, and now the operator doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And I think you're going to see that all throughout the city now, particularly with the congestion pricing. People aren't going to want to deal with the street parking. I think you'll have all these condo garages. Hey, Ricardo 305, what's up? Says, hey Tom, good evening, bro. Just a tip, don't use Chase. They charge 3%. Thank you for the tip. Stylish Bunny says, for one parking spot, $150,000. I would say yes on the lower end, depending on where you are. About $150,000 is space. Because if you want to park and you want to rent monthly in the city, it's probably going to cost you anywhere between, if you get a really good deal, maybe $650 to $1,200, depending on the location.
But no, I'm like, damn.
And depending on the car, right? If it's an exotic car and you're going to park monthly on the Upper East Side, you're probably going to spend $1,000 or $1,200 a month, give or take. So over the long term, it would kind of make sense, right? If you could just put $150,000 as a placeholder for your spot, park in Manhattan in perpetuity, and then sell your spot to the next guy, you get all your money back. And the common charges are so ridiculously low because it's a parking space. It's like $70. So you can make your overhead $70. And depending on the deal structure, but I don't know, it's interesting. That's kind of what we're exploring. MD says, what does it cost to park on the street? I think it's free in some neighborhoods. But then again, free is sometimes a pain in the ass. If you're in Manhattan, you're circling the block, maybe it's alternate side parking in effect, and it gets very tiresome and laborious to park on the street. Particularly if you have kids, you got to go to work, Cher says, hey Tom, I could see someone parking their RV or tiny home in one of those spaces. That's so funny you bring that up, because we actually had to build that into the condo docs to ban that, because we had a lot of inquiry of people wanting to do just that. They're like, oh, can I park my RV and live in the garage? No, you can't do that. That's so funny you bring that up. Now, everybody, here's an interesting view of what 42nd Street used to look like. It just used to be regular pre-war buildings like this. This is one of the few holdouts. And now you have all of these luxury condos and apartments. It's kind of crazy to see how things have changed. Jeff says, I paid $48,000 for a one-car garage parking space in Midtown, and it came with a 2-story, 1-bed, 1-bath condo. Wow, holy crap. Well, you got the deal of a century. That's a really, really good price. Man, that's a score. I would never let that go. 2-bed, 1-bath condo with the space, $48,000. Dude, hold on to that forever. What a score that is. I've never seen anything like that. All right. Here we are, we've made it to the Intrepid. You can see the big carrier all the way in the distance. I'm kind of excited to see it. Looks to be all lit up for a fleet week. This is the West Side Highway. Sharon says it looks like a cool night. It's not. It's actually kind of warm. It's a little humid today. And we're overlooking New Jersey. I'll give you guys a bird's eye view of the aircraft carrier. We'll go on the bridge. I'd just like to point out one thing. We've pointed this out multiple times. If you're visiting New York or you're just moving here, in the summer, the West Side Highway bike path, it's unbelievable. You could spend an entire day, quite literally biking, running, jogging, whatever you need to do around the entire perimeter of Manhattan. And the further you go down, you have amazing views of the Hudson Yards, all the way down by the World Trade Center. I would highly recommend renting a city bike and going on that bike ride during sunset. It's crazy, the views. You're overlooking the Hudson River, you see the World Trade Center. It's awesome. All right, we'll make a U-turn and head north. I gotta plug in my phone here in a minute. Let me do that. Have I been inside the Intrepid Museum? I think once when I was younger. All right, let me just plug in the phone here before it conks out on us. Oh, did we talk about that lawsuit that happened with OpenAI? Hold on. Did we speak about that? I think we briefly spoke about that. And it doesn't necessarily tie into the conversation we had with the tweeting and the posting and stuff, but it does tie in with the litigation. I think we did briefly bring this up last night. For those who have not or aren't aware, allegedly Scarlett Johansson is suing OpenAI because Sam Altman, again, allegedly used her voice for their AI. Now, originally, Sam Altman approached Scarlett Johansson to say, hey, would you like to be the voice of our AI? I guess she said no. And then, funny enough, comes out the voice of the AI sounds similar, I'd say, to her. I wouldn't say it sounds exactly like her, but it sounds similar. So, as we've discussed yesterday, I think it's going to be a very slippery slope, because you could just ask any AI, hey, make me a Drake song, and it makes you a Drake song in his voice, and it actually sounds pretty good. Some of them are up on YouTube. So I don't know. There's gonna, I don't know how you would litigate that. I don't know how you would prevent that. Obviously a big, well-known person like Sam Altman and Scarlett Johansson would probably be able to squash that. But what if there's just like some random guy who makes an AI and is selling like music on the dark web or something? I don't know. it could be a sticky situation. All right, here we have it. Here's the Intrepid. Oh, DM, they said it's a voice of another actress? Got it. Hey, Dan Sang, good to see you, sir. Dan says, how's everything recently? Everything's been going good. You know, no complaints. I'll be back in Miami next week. It's crazy to see these things up close and personal. Oh, you can actually see some people on the Intrepid right now. Now, do we have anybody who's watching the broadcast that's in the military or ex-military? Anybody who's been on one of these big ships deployed? I'll take you guys to the top deck so we can see what's going on over there. Look at the anchors. There's 3 of them. They're huge. Hey, everything in Miami. Good to see you. Hopefully I'll get to see you when I'm back in Miami next week. God willing, please God. Hey, Bryant is veteran of the U.S. Army here. Love that. Appreciate your service. Thank you for your service to the greatest country in the world. Armando's is Marines here. Oh, there we go. Well, Armando, we appreciate you. I appreciate you. Bryant has served in the 1st Infantry Division. Thanks so much for your service. Very much appreciated. All right, let's climb these stairs here. We'll be able to see the very top. Well, hopefully we can just see the top. You can see the 2 jet engines of that fighter jet up there. Fleet Week, May 24th through May 27th. This is movie night, performance activities, over 20 participating. Oh, look at this. I didn't even know this was here. Let's check that out. So the other ship is usually not here. Let me walk a little bit further back so we can see it. Ah, Neighbor Bob's is Air Force vet. Thank you so much, Neighbor Bob. Appreciate it. I've flown a few C5s. I'm not too sure what that is, but I appreciate it. I think there's 2 additional ships here. We'll check them out. We have time. Oh no, maybe it's just 1. How does that come out on the stream? Yeah, this guy's usually not here. Oh, you know what I see on the back of the ship here? So for all the military people in the chat, what is this plane? Is that called an Osprey? I think that's called an Osprey, right? Where the rotary wings tilt in a different direction. I think that's what it's called. Like the wings tilt like that for takeoff and landing. American Creed. This is Tom the Black Jet on the Intrepid. Looks like an SR-71. Well, let's check it out. Let me zoom in. Let's go down here and see what's going on. We'll try to get a closer look to the ship. You know, maybe during Fleet Week we'll do a live stream from inside the ship if I have time. Or on top. I think on top would probably be a little better. Donna says, anyone here have a family member on the ship? That would be kind of cool, right? We're live streaming their son or daughter's warship coming into New York City Harbor. This thing is like a maze. Now, one of my good buddies is in town for Fleet Week. Not for Fleet Week, but just so happens to be in town during Fleet Week. He's in the Air Force. He is a TACP, T-A-C-P. I think he jumps out of planes, things like that. Calls in airstrikes. It's like apparently it's a very big job. I believe it's a Special Forces division of the Air Force. Well, we got another full force of the red light. Shares Art Creations is totally off subject, but the meme of the unemployed capital allocator in the newsletter was very funny. Yeah, I know. It was the best meme on Twitter. I had to put it in the newsletter. But it's so true, though. You know, oftentimes you can find a lot of good lessons in comedy. Now, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, let's just let the FDMY go by. Now, a lot of times you can find some pretty good lessons in comedy. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, if you just check your email, I emailed our free investing newsletter out, and there was this such funny meme where it's a dad. It's just a joke, so don't take it seriously. It's just a meme. It's this father's sitting with his two kids, and the daughter's like, "Dad, if you identified this big AI boom, well, why are we poor? Why are we still poor?" And the father turns to the daughter and is like, "Well, instead of buying the mega cap leaders, I was buying essentially the penny stocks," right? I won't use the profanity in the meme, but a lot of people do that, and a lot of manias, right? And I would say AI is going to turn into a mania Well, let me see how I can navigate this. So I think this is closed off by the looks of the police car here. Oh, and I think there's even a submarine right here. Look at that. This is a cool shot with the NYPD cruiser and the ship in the background. But anyway, you know, during a lot of manias, you know, you'll see all these different posts and all these different people saying, oh, don't buy Nvidia, or don't buy Microsoft, don't buy Apple. I have the next Apple, I have the next Nvidia. And it turns out it's this little scam penny stock. So the moral of the story is, buy companies with solid earnings. You know, don't do the penny stocks. Now, I'm not too sure how well this is coming out, but it's a pretty cool view on my end. I don't think I've ever seen a submarine up close, honestly. At least I believe that's a submarine, just off to the left. And then to the right, you have that big... I mean, what would you call that? Is that an aircraft carrier? I know there's a difference, right? There's warships, something like that. Let's see if we can go a little bit further to get away from the gates. Huh, looks like there's even another one. So you see the submarine, and right behind the submarine looks like something else. We'll have to come back here when it's daylight so we could actually see what's going on. I don't know. I never served in the military, but this stuff looks pretty interesting. Looks pretty cool to see it in person. Now, also, kind of breaking news, maybe like a month old. Apparently, the newest U.S. nuclear submarine, I think, is going to be the USS Miami, which is cool. So we're going to get a state-of-the-art new military ship. Looks like someone's coming out of the security here, called the USS Miami. Being on an M1 Abrams tank is pretty surreal. Got used to it, but initially pretty intimidating. What's the temperature like in that thing? Do you guys have air conditioning? Sorry if that's a stupid question, but do tanks have air conditioning? I'm sure they probably do. All right, well, we'll make a mental note of this. We'll try to come back in the morning. Well, not in the morning, in the afternoon. And once all this stuff is open, maybe we will quickly pop on the live stream and tour it in person. See if we can get on there, like physically on the ship. Mark Francis says, you think the Miami is a ballistic sub? What does that mean? It has ballistic missiles on the submarine? Joel PM. Submarines are the world's most terrifying weapons. Now, I mean, I could go down this rabbit hole all day. This may be a little bit of a conspiracy, but this is just my take. Any of the weapons that we know about, I'm fully convinced there's probably a dozen other military weapons that are 10 times more powerful that they just don't let the public know about. So if we have all these crazy you know, warships, bombers like that B-2 stealth bomber. We probably have something and like dozens more advanced technology that the general public just isn't allowed to know about. Because if you've seen in person one of those B-2 bombers flying, it looks like an alien spaceship. It honestly looks like something that's not even of this earth. So if that's what we're allowed to see, imagine the stuff that we're not allowed to see. Brian's is back then, not much air. Served in 85 to 89 as a mechanic. I had the opportunity to drive one, believe it or not. Got it. This was back then, probably not too much AC. And you know, not for nothing, that's probably what's preventing the world from being cast into World War III. I don't think, and maybe this is a hot take, I don't think we'll ever have another major world war, because all of the major world leaders probably know that everybody's got all these crazy advanced weaponry that could quite literally destroy the earth 80 times over. So that kind of puts a cap on things. Mutually assured destruction probably, you know, keeps everybody safe, as crazy as that may sound. Neighbor Bob's, does it cost over $1 million a day to operate an aircraft carrier? I believe it. It's cool seeing them up close in person though. Now, as we navigate out of here in the distance, you can see the Hudson Yards. Yeah, old Wise House. China has Taiwan surrounded as we speak. I was reading a few articles about that in the journal today. Apparently China is doing military operations. G. Wall says I'm gonna go down there on Saturday. I lived in New York City my whole life, never visited. Check it out, it's cool. It is out of the way, so I could definitely understand why. You know, a lot of New Yorkers are just stuck around their neighborhood, but it's a hike. Just go to Times Square, 42nd Street, and just keep walking all the way until you can't walk anymore. And you'll run right into Hudson River. Hey, Emma G, this is happy birthday for Sunday. Appreciate it. Thank you, Emma from England. Someone says, any birthday plans? I gotta go to a wedding, so I have like a 2-day wedding tomorrow and the next day. Madison 32, appreciate you joining tonight. Yeah, it is getting late. I gotta get back home too. But thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it. Ooh, look at that. Pretty cool shot of the moon in the sky. Dave, no, I'm not in the wedding. I'm not in the wedding party, but the first night is like the welcome dinner, and then the second day is the whole big shebang, you know? Mark says, how old will I be? I'm gonna be turning 29. Whoa, crazy. the last year of my 20s. Now, I remember quite vividly the day I turned 20 years old. I remember I was almost panicked in a way. I was like, oh my God, I'm so old. I'm turning 20, I'm no longer a teenager. It was like a weird freak out. It was like, oh my God, I'm so old. I'm like, where did the time go? I never thought I would be in my 20s. And now it's the last year of my 20s. Kind of crazy. Now, this is an insane penthouse here. All the way up at the top. Coming soon, I got some good news. I'm gonna be able to take a video to show you guys what it's like to live in that penthouse. So coming soon. It's an awesome unit. Insane unit. Yeah, I think nowadays with, modern medicine, I mean, I feel pretty much the same as I do now at 29 this weekend as I do when I was 20. With slight differences. I would say there's very, very slight differences. The biggest difference is with sleep. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I would say 22 is probably when it really, really changed. I have to get at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep now, or like clockwork, I get sick. I really damaged my immune system bad when I was young. I was working way too many hours. It was just horrible. So I think I've exhausted all of my sleepless nights. I used all of those coupons in my 20s. So I've got to get 8 hours. It's just a non-negotiable. I mean, I'll even move meetings around and things like that. It's just, I'm totally inoperable if I don't get 7 or 8 hours. I don't know what it is, but if I get 7 or 8 hours, I'm good. I could work a 12-hour day. I could run a half marathon a day, bang out the live stream. So that's it. It's really the only big change. Now, in the newsletter, it's kind of funny we bring this up. In the newsletter I just sent out, so if you guys want to check your email. Another thing that we talked about, and I said it's kind of being overlooked. Everybody talks about AI, everybody talks about machine learning, but I think, if I had to bet, we're about to go on a massive biotechnology renaissance. The bad news is, I'm not smart enough to understand any of that. However, if you are, maybe you work in biotech, maybe your degree is in, biomedical engineering or biology, this next decade, I think fortunes are going to be made in the biotech sector. With all the genomics, gene editing technologies, we're probably going to be able to quite literally edit cancer away. I mean, what's the total addressable market of that? So I think they'll probably be setting up a biotech revolution. So I wouldn't be surprised, let's say in about a year or two, on CNBC, instead of having AI every day, people on talking about AI, you're going to have people on talking about biotech. It's going to be headline every night on CNBC. What's the next biotech stock to buy? What's this? What's that? But I don't have any edge. I don't have any edge when it comes to that stuff, because I feel as if, number one, quite obviously, you really have to have an edge to make money in individual stocks. And biotech is something that you really need to know what you're talking about.
I think that's why I've done well over the past 8 years, because what was the main thematic over the last 8 years? It was tech and telecom and enterprise software. And I worked in it. I sold these software products to big companies. I sold big telecom infrastructure to these Fortune 500 companies. So I know what the sales cycle was like. I know what the contract buying cycles are like. And I know what companies everybody's gravitating towards. So that was kind of my edge. This is a pretty cool shot right here. This is the moon right in between the Hudson Yards. Hudson Yards is pretty much like a city in and of itself. City in a city. I think everybody's playing pickleball. Let's check it out. You know, this pickleball thing is such a trend. People love it. It's overlooking right over the Hudson River too. Oops, we got the light. Let's cross. 20 seconds. $14 seconds. This is the Jacob Javits Center to the left. Oh, is it 11:30 at night? Crazy. See, that's what I love about New York City. It's 11:30 at night, and you can walk to the Hudson River, and there's people playing pickleball at almost midnight. It's like you don't even feel how late it is, particularly in the summer in New York. This is the mega bus. You can see everybody waiting for the bus here. I'm going to Philadelphia. People are going to Baltimore and Washington. Okay, we're back to 11th Avenue. We're about to see the brand new headquarters of BlackRock. 55 Hudson Yards. I really like the Hudson Yards, particularly in the summer. Now the Intrepid is open again. Not the Intrepid. The Jesus, did I really just say that? The vessel is open again, not the Intrepid. We're coming from the Intrepid. But the vessel is going to be opening up yet again after being closed for probably about, I think, almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half. So that's good news. I think they've installed some sort of safety plexiglass. Mark says, Tom, do you like the Megabus? No, I do not. I despise it very much. That's my arch nemesis. Yeah, but Hudson Yards is beautiful. You have all this nice greenery, particularly in the summer. You know, the winter it's a little rough. Beautiful landscaping, brand new public transportation. It's nice. And here you have it. This is the brand new BlackRock headquarters at 50 Hudson Yards. Larry Fink's company. Now, at the very beginning of the broadcast, we talked about how the Securities and Exchange Commission just approved the Ethereum spot ETF. I think BlackRock already has their ticker symbol ready to go for trading tomorrow. All right, everybody, but I think we'll call it a night. I don't want to keep you too late. So if you guys enjoyed that walkabout, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new, if you would like to join us right back here tomorrow. And just as a quick reminder, we did email everybody about an hour and a half ago. We published our free investing newsletter called Behind the Street. So if you want to receive all of our free research every other Thursday, just go ahead and type !news, NEWS, in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack. But until then, have a wonderful night. We'll see you guys. I don't think I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night, actually. We'll figure it out. We'll do something. We'll figure it out.
I think at one point he said, come on.
Anyway. All right, everybody, take care. DM Mohammed Patrice, Water Blazing, Tatted T, Austin City Limits, Optimus 17, Connie M, all of our moderators, Dave, Western Mass Dave, happy to have you back aboard. Trash Average, Abdullah, RC. See you guys tomorrow.